I'm Fraser-Sampson. I teach a number of modules at Cass Business School in the City of London, ranging from investment strategy through to private equity. But before that, quite unusually, I was an investment professional for over 20 years in and around the private equity industry. And when I'm not teaching at Cass or writing, I do consultancy for a number of investors around the world. And that can be anything from investment strategy through asset allocation, alternative assets in general, or even specifically on private equity and how they should fit that into their overall investment scheme. The book covers private equity as an asset class, and the choice of title is actually very deliberate, because one of the problems with other books, or indeed other courses about private equity, is that they tend to focus on specific aspects of it, particularly how transactions get done at the company level. But they neglect looking at how private equity works at the fund level and how it should fit within the overall investment strategy of an institutional investor. The book has been very successful. To be honest, it's been even more successful than I think we ever anticipated it would be. Obviously, it was topical. It was published at about the time when the great private equity crisis was hitting the media. But I think there's more to it than that. I think it's because it's been written by a practitioner, and because it gives people practical everyday advice as to how they should actually go about analysing, for example, whether a private equity fund is a good fund or a mediocre fund. So it ranges way beyond, I think, the traditional scope of an ordinary academic textbook. Almost as soon as the first edition had been published, obviously things started changing very rapidly and very significantly as we moved into the financial crisis. And it became apparent fairly quickly that a new edition would be required, and that's why the second edition is coming out only 3 years after the first one. But there is a great deal of new material. There's 30 to 40% new material in the book, including whole new chapters on things like secondaries and growth and development capital. And also, I have to confess, we never anticipated there would be a need for a section on how to tell the difference between a private equity fund and a hedge fund. But there was, and so there is. I do write different types of book, yes. I write, for example, fiction, and I write history, and that can be a bit of a challenge, especially if you're writing 2 books at the same time. I think one thing comes through though, and it really doesn't matter what sort of book it is, and that is that your first duty is to communicate. You have to reach out and grab your reader. And obviously I receive a lot of feedback, some of it good, some of it not so good, but the feedback that I find really valuable is when somebody says to me that when I was reading this book, I could actually hear you talking to me, because that's very much what I'm trying to do. What is different about this book, I think, what is special, what sets it apart from other books out there, is that it has been written by a practitioner, and it's based on many years' experience of what actually happens in the marketplace, not on academic or financial theory. And in fact, if you want to know how to analyse a private equity fund, how to analyse a private equity firm, then this is definitely the book that will give you what you need to know. In fact, I think one of the reviewers of the first edition said something like, if you want a book about private equity, this gives you everything you need to know.